Ever feel like someone's messing with your head, like trying to control what you think?
You mean like all the time?
Yeah, exactly. Well, today we're going deep on propaganda.
Ooh, juicy.
Right. And get this, to really understand it, we have to go way back, like prehistoric back,
Caveman times.
basically. We've got these excerpts from a Spanish language source, Moscas. Fascinating stuff. Anyway, it talks about how our brains haven't really evolved to handle all the information thrown at us today.
It's true. The source calls it caveman strengths, cybernetic weaknesses.
Okay, so break that down for me. Cybernetic weaknesses. What does that even mean?
So imagine your brain's like an old computer, right? Like ancient.
Okay, I'm with you.
So it's great for basic stuff, finding food, spotting danger, caveman things.
Makes sense.
But now, try running like a super complex app on that thing. Like the latest social media, it's going to crash, right? Like overheat, glitch out.
Oh, tell me about it. My phone.
Exactly. It's not built for that. Our brains are kind of the same. We react to things in a way that made sense back then but makes us vulnerable now.
So you're saying we're hardwired to be, like, manipulated?
In a way, yeah. Think about it like that feeling you get when you can't look away from a car crash.
Oh, yeah. Even though you know you shouldn't.
Exactly. The source says that's our inner caveman, our danger alert system going haywire. Back then, you had to pay attention to threats. Even if they weren't happening to you, it kept you alive.
Right, so you know what to avoid.
Exactly. But these days, we've got the 24/7 news cycle, social media. It's like we're constantly being bombarded with those danger signals, and our poor caveman brains don't know how to turn it off.
Wow. It all makes sense now. Okay, so this source also mentions something I never thought I'd hear in a conversation about propaganda. They bring up toxic masculinity. How does that play into all of this?
Well, it all boils down to fear. See, a lot of propaganda, especially throughout history, it kind of preys on this fear of losing power. And they give this crazy example, 19th century American pornography.
Whoa, wait a minute. What?
Yeah, it's wild. The source says that a lot of the imagery back then played on people's anxieties, especially depicting black men with white women in a way that was meant to stir up racial and sexual tension.
Wow.
Yeah, it's dark. But it shows how these very basic fears, these insecurities about power and control, can be weaponized.
It's like those images were designed to push people's buttons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize maybe things haven't changed as much as we like to think.
So we've got these caveman brains trying to handle the modern world. But how has propaganda actually been used throughout history?
Well, get this. The source talks about how freedom of expression itself can be a tool for manipulation.
Whoa. Really?
Yeah. Like imagine saying you support free speech while a whole group of people are being denied basic human rights.
It's like do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. And it happens more often than you think. The source uses the example of powerful countries that preach about free markets.
Right, free trade, all
Sure.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But their own success was built on, well, kind of the opposite. They talk about how Britain basically destroyed the Indian textile industry back in the 1800s
They did what? Why?
to protect their own wool production.
Oh, wow. Talk about looking out for number one.
Right. And it's not just ancient history either. This source also mentions the CIA using fake news.
Wait, the CIA and fake news, is that connection for real?
It is, and it goes way back. Apparently, during the Cold War, they used media to influence, like, global events,
Like secretly controlling what people were reading and watching?
basically.
Yeah.
And they give this really interesting example. Patrice Lumumba, he was the first prime minister of the Congo.
Okay.
But the CIA, they painted him as this dangerous communist in the Western media.
Did it work?
He ended up getting assassinated. The source even suggests the CIA might have been involved.
Wow. So propaganda isn't just some abstract idea. It has, like, real-life consequences.
Exactly. It can shape the fate of nations, even lead to violence. It makes you wonder, how much of what we're seeing in the news today is being influenced by forces we don't even know about?
It's kind of creepy to think about. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from, like, cave paintings to Cold War conspiracies. It's a lot.
It is.
But, okay, fast forward to today. With the internet, with all this information at our fingertips, you'd think we'd be, like, immune to propaganda now, right?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Oh, right. I mean, we're not cavemen anymore.
Well, the source actually argues that it might be the opposite.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, they think all this technology, all this information overload, it's actually made us more vulnerable.
How? That doesn't make sense.
Think about it. What's it like scrolling through your social media feed?
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's just constant.
Exactly. Headlines, memes, arguments. Our brains are hardwired to pay attention to what's new, what's shiny, what grabs our attention,
And there's just so much of it.
right? Which means we can get sucked into whatever's loudest, the most outrageous, the most emotionally charged, whether it's true or not. And the thing is,
Why?
we don't even realize it's happening.
Because we're too busy scrolling to the next thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you've got these algorithms. They're watching everything you do, every share, every comment.
Ugh, I hate that they do that.
They're basically custom tailoring your feed to keep you hooked. It's like a personal spin doctor curating your reality.
Whoa, okay, that's creepy. And then you add those super influencers, the ones with millions of followers, like the source talks about.
It's almost like they have a direct line to our subconscious, you know?
It's scary.
It is. These influencers, these big media companies, they're like the new gatekeepers of information, shaping how we see the world.
It's giving me like major Matrix vibes. And like, what about AI? The source mentions these deepfakes. Is that where we're headed? Like, where we can't even trust what we see and hear anymore?
That's the big question, isn't it? AI has the potential for so much good,
Mm.
but it's got a dark side too. Think about it. Imagine a world where videos, audio, even like written stuff can be perfectly faked.
That's terrifying.
It is. And that's the future we're facing.
So what do we do? How do we fight back against all of this?
I think it starts with awareness. We have to recognize our own vulnerabilities, like those caveman strengths, cybernetic weaknesses we were talking about.
Right.
We have to be critical of the information we consume, question our own biases.
Question everything.
Basically, and be wary of anyone who benefits from keeping us afraid, divided, or, like, misinformed.
It's like that saying, trust but verify, but like times 1,000.
Right. We can't just passively consume information anymore. We have to be active participants in shaping our own understanding of the world.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to unpack. This whole conversation has been eye-opening, to say the least. So if propaganda is really this powerful, this insidious, what does that say about, like, our future? Where do we even go from here? Food for thought, I guess. As always, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been illuminating, if a little terrifying.